Hey developers, today we are going to look at Vue.js components. We're going to create a small little comment app, and we're going to just look at the fundamentals of components and how they work in Vue.js. Let's take a look. Hey, before we begin, just let me remind you guys that Udemy is having a $10 sale. That's actually $10 if you're a brand new user and $12 if you're not. It's only for a limited time, so click on the links below and you can get it for cheap. By the way, those are affiliate links. And if you're interested, I am writing a book on Vue.js. It's a Vue.js in action published by Manning. You can get the free chapter of my book by signing up for my mailing list. I have the links below. Let's start. All right, so let's begin. So this is where we're going. So we're going to create this comment thread here. Little pictures, little bubbles for comments. And then we're going to be able to add comments, and each one of these comments are going to be its own Vue.js component. So that's kind of our goal here. So let's begin. By the way, I got some of the CSS and HTML from a source that I found. I'll go ahead and link it to it below. It's from just a code pen. So I'm going to refresh it. Of course, there's nothing there right now. So let's start. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste some basic HTML code to get started here. All right, and of course we're going to have ending body tag, ending HTML tag. So we just want to make sure we have all this. And what we're going to do, I'm going to add a script tag in here. And if you aren't familiar, what we're doing here is at the top I have the script source, which is Vue, and this is going to be the development version, so we can look in the Chrome console if we have to be able to get information about it. And we're also linking up to a style sheet we have in the same folder, so nothing too crazy there. So to start off with our app, we're going to do new Vue. And of course, if you guys are interested in getting into more of Vue, there's something called the Vue CLI, which generates everything for us. But we're going to go ahead and just do this because this is just a simple app that we're going to show. And these fundamentals you can use when you're using something more complicated like the Vue CLI. And that's the Vue CLI is a command line tool to generate Vue applications, by the way. So we can also give it a place to start. So let's just see if it works. So I'm going to create a data method here, a data function that is. And in that function, we're going to return an object. And then in that object, we're going to return just a message that says, hello world, with quotes around it. So this is the basics of creating a Vue app. It's really simple. We just new Vue, and then we type in L. This app refers to a div we're going to add in here. So I'm going to add right here a div. It matches the ID, so it's going to be called app. And one thing we have to do with Vue apps is you're always going to have this at least one element inside here like this, and this tells Vue to go ahead and put everything inside this app here. So then we're just going to see if it displays the message. And I'm kind of going quick through here, but you use the double curly brackets to do to tell Vue to use this message here, this interpolation. So let's save it. If we go ahead and refresh it, and you can see here we see hello world. So I'll make that a little bit bigger. I'll make it an H1. How about that? There it is, hello world. So we're definitely talking correctly in the Vue. If we look, you can install the Vue inspector here, and you can kind of get an idea what it's in there. You can't really see because my head's in the way, but you can see here data Vue. So that's that. So we're talking about components. So there's a few ways to create components in Vue. One of the ways is to make it a global view, that is. So if we look in the documentation, there's a really good Vue component. There's really good information in the guides. So there's something called registration. So you can make either your registration local or global. So let's try to create a global one first. So just like it says in the documentation, we're going to go Vue component, ONENT. And then we're going to, inside the Vue component, it's kind of like the same syntax as the other one. And now we're going to put the options in. So we're going to put a template. And we're just going to use some string interpolation here. By the way, we need to put a name here. Let's just call it my component, just like this example. And then we're going to put in something here. So let's put in a div tag. And we'll type in this is a component. And that's pretty much it. So now we can go back here and we can reference it. So we can do my component without the question marks. Have opening, closing. Save it. And we'll refresh it. And we get an error message here. So let's see what we did wrong. Missing blank after argument list. So we have a problem here on line 14. So let me see here. Oh, we need a comma here. Okay, an unknown custom element my component. Did you register the component correctly? So I misspelt it here. Component. So this is a component. So a little debugging while we're doing it, but there it is. This is a component. And so this is the very simplest version, one of the very simplest versions of a component in Vue.js. So, but let's say we want to do something a little bit more complicated. Let's go ahead, instead of doing this global registration, let's do the local registration, which will be local to this file here. So instead of doing this, we can, right down here, we can type in components. And we'll give it an object, and inside the object we give it my component. And then from here is where we can go ahead and register another component. So we could do this a couple of ways. We could just do an object here, and we can have template, and we can do the same thing as we did before. So let's do a div tag, and we could say local registration. Save it. Make sure I have enough. Okay, save it, and we'll go ahead and refresh it. You can see here it says local registration now. So that's good. So now we just went ahead and did local registration on it. So we could also do something like this. Instead of having the template information right inside here where we registered the component, we can delete this and we can reference it. So we can call it my component. And then still in the script tag, we can do a const my component equals, and then we're just giving it a same thing we did before. We can put a template, and we put hashtag, and then, well, we do a couple different ways. We can do it like this, div, I could say with local registration with a const. So if I refresh it, you can see it still works the same way. So we added the component down here with the name my component. We had the constant here where we defined it with our template as something inside the object here. As a property inside the object, we have our div tags, local registration with a const, and then we're still referring to it right here in my component. So we can keep on going with this type of example. We could do one other thing. Instead of having the template here, we could do something like this. We put we put a hashtag, just like we're doing like a CSS select or like an ID selector, and we can put in my component. We can name this whatever we want, my component template. And then what we have to do is we can create another script block. And this is kind of weird. We do script type equals text x template. And then the ID has to match what we just called it down there. So my component template. And by the way, you don't have to put dashes in your component names like you may have seen in other frameworks. It's just kind of preferred. And we have the end of the script tag. So now, since you're using this text x template, my component template, you can kind of see there, it's cut off a little bit. You can put all your code in here. You can put the whole code in for the template. So once again, we need to make sure we have at least one element in there, like a div tag. So now I can say this is the x template. And if I save it, I reload it, see this is the x template. So we know it's working. So you can see here, I do script type text x template ID my component template. This ID has to match what you see here in this template right down here. So these are just 3 different ways you can register components. One other thing I want to mention, in the next video we're going to get to actually creating this component, but I just wanted to go through the basics. The next video we'll go over how to create this comment and to dynamically take it and be able to add comments. So, but I just want to show you one more thing. So one thing we could do is you could do something called is, and if you look in the documentation, it explains it really well. You see local registration DOM, there's this caveats here, which when using the DOM as your template, like using the L option to mount an element with existing content, you'll be subject to some restrictions that are inherent to how HTML works because Vue can only retrieve the template content after the browser has parsed and normalized it. Most notably, some elements such as UL, OL, table, select have restrictions on what elements can appear inside them, and some elements such as option. So it's telling you here that if you make a component and then you nest it like inside a table or a UL, then it's not going to work correctly because of the way of the hoisting works inside JavaScript itself. Now you can get away with that by using something called is, or if you're using this text x template, which is actually, you don't want to use this a lot. It's just for small applications. It's useful, but usually you don't want to use this x template a lot. So you can get away with it if you're using it, or inline template strings, or .vue components, which we'll talk about later when we show Vue CLI. So let's go back and see how that works. So instead of having my component here, let's make like a list. On our list, and we're going to have an li in here instead, and we want my component to be nested inside here. So I'm going to get rid of this script, the x script, and instead of having it inside here, we're going to do something like this. We're going to do a div. Actually, let's do this. We're going to have li, and I'll say this is an element. And what we're going to do here is I'll delete this. It's still called my component. But what we can do is we'll do li, and then we'll do is, and then we can put in the component name. So my, as it shows in here, you actually, since this is called my component, we have to, it's really, you want to do it in this kebab case, my dash component. So my dash component, and then we have the ending li, and then we could have done other things in here. We can do the other directives, but we won't right now. So let's take a look at that. All right, you could say this is with an extra e. This is an element. So basically, since we're putting this component inside this UL, it's one of those weird circumstances, you have to use the is operator. That is all we're going to show in this video because it's going a little bit long. But in the next video, we'll talk about how to put this all together with our commenting system. If you like these type of videos, please click that subscribe button. And if you really like it, click that bell button and that'll notify you the next time I have a video. Thanks and take care.